unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time.
How much gold do you own? Do you own a lot of gold? I don't know a lot of people who own a lot of gold. I mean, if they do, they keep it in a safe deposit box. It's not considered to be very classy to wear gold. Only people who were once poor tend to flash around a lot of gold. Well, Donald Trump likes gold. You know, it's kind of considered to be a low-class thing to really like gold. I have to admit that I've been kind of fascinated with it. I've always been more fascinated with fool's gold and brass and things that look like gold that aren't gold. You know? Because I like a bargain. And I think, well, why not? If we're just going on aesthetics, why not just have the fake Rolex? You know, instead of the real one. In fact, I went through a phase where I bought lots of fake Rolexes. I got obsessed with them, bought probably about 30 of them over. They make great gifts. And I like to wear one. I would put an orange sticker on the front of it that said fake. You know? Oh, fun story. John Galliano saw me wearing a fake Rolex. John Galliano is that fashion designer who got in trouble for getting drunk and saying unspeakable things. But anyway, I hung out with him in France one time, and he saw my fake Rolex, and he really liked it. And I liked that he liked it. I admit it. He was a cute little man. Fake gold. Fun, but interesting. But gold is interesting, right? Gold, it's this dense metal. You know, it can be hammered as thin as anything, thinner than anything. You know, it's a fascinating element, really. Money used to be based on gold. Have you ever felt gold, you know, a gold coin, the weight of it? It's really cool. It's dense. Lead is dense, but it's not pretty. It's ugly. It's not ugly, but, you know, it's just lead. Gray. Dull. But gold is all shiny. Anyway, why am I talking about gold? Well, a couple reasons. You know, with all this politics, with politics being so weird as they are right now, with people on the left really seemingly ramping up to civil war, you start thinking, well, what would I do to protect money? Maybe I just buy a bunch of gold and bury it all over the world, you know, sock it away like a crazy person. But, you know, I really did start thinking. You start thinking about the money, the way money works and the way it got away from gold. It used to be all backed by gold. And it's just kind of a fascinating, weird thing that gold does have so many purposes other than just being pretty and having this inherent value that we ascribe to it. And it's really weird why we ascribe value to it, but not really when it comes down to just who we are as creatures. I think that you could probably, you know, stick a family out in the wilderness that doesn't know anything about gold, you know, and if they found gold, they would like it. I don't think that you have to be taught to like gold, you know. Crows don't need to be taught to like shiny things, you know, and they're intelligent animals. It seems like all intelligent creatures like shiny, sparkly things. It's not, you know, we like to believe that those things are all just that greed and the love of beautiful, sparkly, shiny things, or just beautiful things in general. We like to think that it's somehow foisted on us by, you know, people with their own intentions, you know, like a plan. Got to make, you know, to edge things towards beauty, but it's just not true, you know. Animals like beautiful things. We like beautiful things. Gold is one of those things. And so, just in thinking about it, YouTube gave me a series of video recommendations, and then I ended up just watching these young people who are out prospecting for gold. And I ended up watching these videos of people making gold claims, and you see them panning in these rivers and digging up hillsides and looking in little cracks and crevices for gold. And it just seems so silly, weird, pathetic, heartwarming. So many things just watching these guys and just being able to, and just why are these videos fascinating anyway? Just sitting here laying in bed watching somebody else searching for something. Gold, little flakes. They'll, dig up a whole bunch of stuff and then pan it out, and they'll get these few little flakes, and at the end of the day, they'll go home with a few grams, and they seem happy about it. And I thought, well, why not? They're out in nature. God, some of these streams and creeks they're on are beautiful. They're seeing fish and deer and bear, and they've got their hands in the water, and they're moving rocks and opening up cracks in the earth and swishing things around. And it's kind of like I'm asking the question, but the answer is in the question. It's all fascinating compared to what I'm doing, watching them doing it. Them doing it, that process, it's in and of itself is valuable, whether they find the gold or not. It's almost as if the gold is just a reward for doing something that's wonderful anyway, which is just getting your hands in nature and walking through nature and interacting with nature. You look at what they're doing compared to what somebody's doing in a cubicle somewhere, and I think, well, that looks way more fun. But still, philosophically, what a weird thing to just be busy, to just pass your time looking for these little flecks of gold, these little nuggets of gold that will be put into a little bottle, melted down, and so many of them just turn into gold bars, which go into vaults and aren't really enjoyed. Some of it goes into jewelry, some of it goes into a gilding to cover, to make little accents on buildings and hang around rappers' necks. But most of it just gets melted into these gold bars and hidden away, which is weird because it means that it really doesn't have the functional value that a potato has. You can't eat that gold. A potato, you can eat it. You can make beautiful things out of the gold, a functional thing, electronic components, blah, blah, blah. But most of it just gets stored away for its potential. And pondering that idea for me is just, it's kind of insane. Because, you sock it away because you think, well, it's a wise investment. And if you look, I looked at, over the last week, since I went down this rabbit hole of gold, you look at how gold historically performs, and it goes up and it goes down. It was really high in 2010 or 11, probably because it was after that crash, and people were really like, oh boy, that scared the shit out of me. But then it's back down, it dips. Over time, though, it holds, pretty steady. And that's just because it's hard to find. It takes a lot of energy to mine it and get it out of the earth. And then once you have it, it's so obvious you have it. I also looked into silver too, But silver, it's 18. You need 18 times as much of it to have the same value, literally in volume. Fun to have, but silver's just not as pretty as gold. It just isn't. Gold is prettier, so it's no mistake that it's prettier and it's more dense, and it's that combination of being dense and beautiful and functional that I think will always keep the value of gold high. Although, again, in a natural disaster or something, let's say everything's wiped out and you need some food for your gold, well, suddenly food becomes the most valuable thing. At a certain point, holding out a gold bar for food, if there's no food, somebody's going to go, no, I'm sorry, I can't do much with that gold. It only has value if you can imagine things being stable again. Because if things aren't going to be stable, then where's the value on gold? It relies on stability to have any value at all. Because how valuable can gold be in Venezuela right now? I mean, sure, it has value, but mostly to an outside force. You have to get outside of Venezuela. Because people are trading gold for sandwiches. Does that mean that the price of a sandwich has gone up, or that the value of the gold has gone down? How do you measure that? Which one is high, which one is low? If you've got to pay a whole, an ounce of gold for a sandwich, then an ounce of gold is worth a sandwich. You wouldn't say, an ounce of gold is worth $1,600. Or would you say a sandwich costs $1,600? It's funny how we measure money against gold, which has this only magical value. It only has the value of that density and that beauty. And yet, it seems to me that we are biologically programmed to accept that. And it's really strange to me. Because when the shit comes down, it's that sandwich that has the value. It's that coat that has the value. It's that gallon of water that has the value. It's your life. It's protection from the elements that has the value. How much will gold help you with that? It won't. So it's weird because the value is misappropriated. It's kind of why I've always invested my money in property. Of course, somebody can come and take your property away from you, and you never really own it anyway. You don't pay your taxes, and it becomes very obvious who owns your land. The thugs in charge own everything, and you got to pay your bits of gold. Anyway, I don't have this big speech about gold prepared for you. I don't even have a big lesson prepared or anything about that. To me, it's just fascinating pondering even the concept of value as it relates to anything but your own health and your own life and your own comfort. The fact that we can philosophically and intellectually store that value in a dense, heavy mineral or element, gold, is pretty crazy. And it's really kind of hard to imagine how human beings evolved to make that weird philosophical leap to say that gold represents sandwiches, coats, comfort, protection from the elements, health even, that you can go with a piece of gold to the witch doctor and get healed. Oh, and don't even get me started about placebos. I think they're related. I think placebos and gold are related, and if they are, it really points us towards a magical mystical existence, because it doesn't stand to reason. It's not reasonable. Do you know what I mean? It's not reasonable. Placebos aren't reasonable. You can't just reason them out. I mean, I guess you can scientifically. You can go, well, we're chemical factories. Your brain controls the chemical factory, but how is it that we can trick our own brain, or somebody else can trick our own brain into healing itself or creating the chemicals it needs to heal itself? And how does the value of gold also kind of give that placebo? That having more of it creates more of the elements that we really need. Of course, you can't talk about this without saying money can't buy you love. And it can't. People stockpile gold in all of its forms, whether it be, okay, so for me, a jet ski is worth a hell of a lot more than gold. Because why? Because jet skis are fucking fun. Or so they seem. I've never been on a jet ski. But don't they look fun? A car, fun. Whoa, drive around. Big house, not so fun. Too much maintenance. But all these toys that people buy with gold, fun. But, even then, no matter how fun something is, I'm sure you know this. Every kid knows this. You get a big toy on Christmas. It provides you a bit of fun, but there's diminishing returns. Very few toys, the love or the fun that a toy brings very rarely lasts for a long time. Some longer than others, but after you go jet skiing for a few hours, you're pretty much. I'm talking as if I've been jet skiing. I don't know, but I've done other things and other fun. Jumping on a trampoline. Okay, there's my level of fun. Jumping on a trampoline, fun, but more than a few hours? Hell, I did that one time actually when I was young. I jumped on a trampoline for probably all day one day, probably 16 hours, and I fucked up my back like really badly for months. I had a pain in my back. I didn't tell anybody about it, but I was scared at the young age of 12 that I was already an old person that had fucked up my back. But anyway, I'm getting off topic, as I always do. But yeah, gold is crazy. It's a crazy, weird element. I don't. The older I'm getting, the less critical I'm getting about how human beings really are, as compared to how I think they ought to be. I think when you think you know everything, and I think when you're younger and you start thinking and you start putting things together and you discover reason and logic and everything and truth and fact and the ability to reason and comprehend things, I think you start thinking, why isn't everybody else like this? And then now that I'm getting older, I'm realizing human beings don't have interest. They're not even built to be reasonable. They're not. What function does reason have for most people? Reason Logic is such a niche. It's a niche fetish. One that I'm entrenched in. I'm fascinated by logic and reason, but it's not inherent to human beings. In fact, it's contrary to human beings because, yeah, you can logically look at gold and go, yes, it's dense, yes, it's heavy, yes, it's beautiful, therefore it has valuable, but storing it away in vaults, reason goes out the window when it's not being used. Placebos, no reason. Religion, no reason. Sports teams, no reason. Human beings aren't reasonable. They're magical creatures. And I think I've got to just accept that. It's hard for me to accept it. It's hard for me to accept that for most people, you can present to them a rock solid argument and they will not give a flying fuck if it doesn't already jibe with the flow of their life, with the tribe, with their culture, with their team, with the ideas they already have. They won't care. Try to convince somebody that gold has no value. It's like trying to convince somebody there is no God. It's all fruitless, and it's just because human beings aren't built that way. And I don't think you'll ever be able to change most people. The bulk of people will never find any use for truth or logic or reason. And we can see this by the information age. You'd think, oh, well, now we have all the information. Now, if somebody lies to you, you're literally one search away or a couple searches away from being able to find out the truth about something, or at least, some reasonable facsimile thereof. Yet, who does it? How many people do it? They don't. They don't care. They don't care if they belong to a tribe and the leaders of that tribe are lying, and they know their leaders are lying. They stand behind that leader's lies because the team comes first. The truth has nothing to do with it. It's like a group of thieves, They don't care. The truth doesn't matter. What matters is victory. The victory, to be on the winning team, to have the most, to be the safest, To be the safest, I think, is what it is, safety. And, boy, turning away from your own tribe and going out on your own, what's safe about that? What's reasonable about that? What's logical about that? Even if you have a bunch of money. Now, nature's programmed differently than the way philosophers and logic fetishists want it to be. It's much more simple. It's just the closer I look at it, it's just so human beings we're so much more primitive than we want to acknowledge. At a visceral, primal level, that gold still means something. Picking through the dirt, just that motion. Digging, hunter, gatherer, tribe, my tribe, your tribe, survival. Lying, cheating, stealing. People don't really care about that. You can try to convince them that being good in the long run is better. That's what Christianity has tried to do. But I think when shit comes down, they'll just pick the lies that suit their tribe. and they'll convince themselves that they're the truth. And they kind of become the truth, because ultimately it is that sandwich, that glass of water, the house, the blanket, the coat, that is more valuable. That's really what the truth is. The truth is actually survival. Your comfort is really anything that goes towards that ultimately becomes the most truthful path. And if that means deceiving and lying and whatever, and standing behind and supporting a general who is literally raping and pillaging the others so that you can live, then that's the choice that people make. It's all nonsense. It's all nonsensical, really. But is it? Or is it absolutely simple and beautiful? Is it totally simple? Is it just that we are just like almost every animal on the planet? You know, for some reason, my Facebook feed has become filled with all these GIFs or GIFs, whatever you call them, of animals doing crazy things and getting along with other animals. And I've been reposting them because I've given myself a rule that if I like something at all, I'm just going to share it. I'm not going to be governed by whether or not I should or shouldn't. If I like it, I'm just going to share it, right? So maybe the algorithm has picked up on that's what I like, and so it's giving me more of that, and fine. I'm not bummed. Go ahead and give me more. But I bring that up because even animals, while they do obviously get along with, it's fun to watch a capybara getting along with every animal, or a dog and a lion getting along, or a cat and a dog. It's gorgeous. So animals do cross over, and they'll develop their own families. But for the most part in nature, you know, animals are just going about their business, looking out for their own tribes, looking out for themselves, trying to find joy, trying to find a snuggle where they can, you know, somebody to lick their paw, you know, warm body to snuggle up against. That matters more than anything. You don't see animals trying to reason their way out of their tribe or out of their pack. Nah, I mean, certain animals, I guess, go off on their own. I don't know. I'm talking out my ass right now. But, you know, as a person that spent the better part of the last, 25 years really pursuing logic and reason and just wanting people to be reasonable, just realizing that it's just not that way. But I can't bring myself to be part of the system that lies, that just says. So how do you reason that? How do you find, if nobody really gives a shit about the truth, and they don't seem to be reasonable, then how do you conduct yourself? And I guess the thing is just be more visceral. When you're watching these guys panning for gold in the streams, it's not even the gold, it's the process. Being out there, looking for value, taking certain risks, and just being busy, panning, sifting, looking for value. I don't know. What's really kind of fucked up about it all, though, is that gold really brings you more trouble than anything else, right? It's heavy. It's hard to transport around. You got to find space for it. Weighs you down. Literally weighs you down. Makes you a target. Try going out wearing a bunch of gold. You'll become a target of violence. Many people will violently separate you and your gold. And if they don't do it violently, they'll, try to trick you away from it. You'll get all kinds of people with bad intentions swarming around you if you cover yourself in gold, if they know that you have it. I mean, if you have gold, you got to keep it a secret. Because if people know, you find every good criminal movie starts with finding out, hey, I know a guy who has a bunch of gold in a safe. You're a target. It's really a bad way. It's a bad way to store that value, to represent those sandwiches. It's really inefficient. Really, it comes down to this. I can make a whole. I've been saying to I've been trying to put my head around Bitcoin and all that stuff, and people go, "Well, it's better than gold. It's better than the Fed," and blah blah blah. And thinking about Bitcoin and even thinking about gold, ultimately what it comes down to is the only currency that really matters in the world is violence and the potential threat thereof. That's really the only currency that really matters when the shit goes down. If you've got the strength to back it up, and if you've got the strength and the will and the wherewithal to take what the resources you need to survive. And I'm not trying to end this on a dark tone, but you can't just have a discussion about gold without talking about violence. I mean, the process of ripping it out of the earth is violent. The process of the mining, if you really look into those bars of gold and you look into the mines in Guyana and Brazil, and the slave labor that takes to mine most of it, it's in sharp contrast to these little young prospectors, wandering through nature, looking for gold in a beautiful stream on a nice day. It gets really ugly. And I'm not trying to go ugly. But hey, what am I going to do? I'm making a whole little thing about gold and how unreasonable it all is. But also, it's kind of pretty. That goddamn yin yang just keeps rearing its ugly head everywhere I go. But that's about enough of that. Thanks for listening.